Well, good morning, everybody. We've got Ian Jarvis this morning. Ian's going to give us some great ideas. So I'm going to hand straight over to you. Over to you, Ian.
I've described this as a mixture of simple, cost-free admin steps to implementing technology, and I guess I need to I need to manage expectations to a degree. In that, some of what I'm going to say, I classify in the realm of the blinding obvious. To be honest, they're not rocket science, but it's amazing how many times you see those basic steps not doing so. I've included them here, but yeah, if you're looking for thinking, why did he study so long to be an accountant to learn that, then these aren't possibly some of the things. But yeah, I do see them a lot, and they cause problems when it comes to collecting payments from customers. So I'm going to look at why is credit control important. I've sort of categorized debtors into 4 different types, and I'll go through that. And as with most things in life, avoiding the situation is better than trying to cure it. So I talk through some of those things, and then finally I'll get to some technology, because some of you will know, that's what I get out of bed for in the morning, in terms of playing with all this clever technology and things like that. So I'll show you how that can help as well. So, and in terms of importance of credit control, some statistics, because I love numbers. So 600,000 companies formed every year in the UK, but 20% of those sadly fail in the first year. 60% fail within 3 years, and of those that fail, 80% fail due to a lack of cash. And as luck would have it, I had a report land on my desk this morning, or in my email inbox, so I've quickly added a slide. So Peter hasn't seen this one in the version I sent, but I quickly added a slide. So report for some data from the FSB, and an infographic here with all sorts of information about slow payment. And I don't need to go through all of these, but essentially what it's saying is 1/3 of all payments to small businesses are late. 61% of businesses, small businesses, that are paid late by big business. So it's clearly pointing some of the finger of blame there. And £6,142, the sort of average late payment that small businesses are suffering. I don't know about you, but I would struggle if people owed me that much money, and I think that's the same for lots of small businesses. I think somebody else gave a presentation a week or 2 ago about from the legal aspect of credit control, and saying that if your customers are late paying, then you have a legal right to charge them interest. You can charge them 8% above the bank's base rate, so far better than you get in any bank. But that's really, really difficult to do. It might sound easy to do from what the law has written, but it's really difficult to do if you want to preserve client and customer relations. And there's the figure there: 79% of small businesses don't actually do that, because it tends to kill those customer relationships anyway. But so yeah, there's all sorts of things going on, and the FSB are constantly campaigning about this issue as well. So 4 types of debtor. This is my analysis really, so it's quite simple and straightforward. You've got people who haven't paid you for one reason or another. You've got people that can't pay you, those that are in some sort of dispute with you, and those that won't pay you. So I think there's 4 quite different scenarios there, and your response to those should be quite different. So understanding when something hasn't been paid that's due, which one of those categories it falls into, will help you in terms of how you respond. And I'd suggest that those that haven't paid, they just need a nudge. They've forgotten it, they've misfiled something. They just need a reminder, a gentle nudge, and you'll probably get paid quite quickly. Those that can't pay, a little bit more difficult. Maybe you need to agree a payment plan with them. So instead of paying you all in one go, they agree some installments, and you'll obviously factor that into how much other business you'll do with them in the future. But at least come to an agreement whereby you get paid for what you're owed. Dispute's fairly obvious. Resolve the dispute, and this is always infuriating when you've got an invoice with, I don't know, £10,000 on the invoice, and there's a £50 item that's disputed, and they don't pay the £10,000. So solving the dispute, which could be pretty small, will trigger payment of a bigger amount. So it's often the case. So resolve the dispute would be the priority there, and then won't pay is very much a case of considering legal action. I use the word consider quite deliberately there because it's not always the easiest solution. It could be quite expensive, so you need to come to a commercial decision as to whether you're really going to push it legally. Principles are great, but when principles cost you a lot of money, then you have to take a balanced view there as to whether that's something you're going to do. But okay. So if you can categorise your debtors in that fashion, that's I think that's quite helpful. As I said at the outset, it's very much a case of avoiding this situation rather than trying to cure it. And this is some of the blindingly obvious stuff, perhaps that lots of people don't do, but just take some time to know who your customer is. Get all their details, their contact details. You don't sell to people that you don't know who they are. And of course, this is relative to what you're selling. If you're selling something that's £1.99, you're going to do less of this than if you're selling professional services or something with a greater value. But you may consider taking out a credit worthiness check on a business. If they're a limited company or an established business, then they will have a credit reference agency with Experian or somewhere like that. They're relatively inexpensive. You can do that, and that might just point to issues they've had before, and so it would make you wary of them. That might even cause you to say, I'm not going to give somebody credit, and you charge them in advance, so they pay up front for the goods or services that you're offering. If indeed that's how you want to proceed, or you set a credit limit and be pretty strict with yourself. I'm not going to let them have credit of more than a certain amount, so they've got to pay for things before they get any more. Agree details with people up front, so it's easy to think of a formal contract, but issue them with a quote. Get them to sign that quote and return it to you, sign, so that that would serve the purposes of a contract. I'm sure a lawyer would say something quite different, but you make sure that they know that what the invoice is going to be. I mean, I don't personally send anybody an invoice that they'd be surprised by, that they know what's coming. That's have those sort of quotes or written proposals or ultimately contracts for a greater value. Then when you make the sale, invoice people promptly and accurately, and this is another blindingly obvious thing, but if you send someone an invoice 3 or 4 months after you've had to the sale, they'll forget what they did, and people do. So get those invoices out. I mean, even if you're just making time once a week to send invoices, but get them out promptly. Make sure they're correct, because people don't need any excuse not to pay. If you've got errors on the invoice, then that will slow up payments as well. Send them to the correct person, preferably by email, so that you know that they've received it and it's gone direct to them, not been lost in a post tray somewhere. State the due date for payment on the invoice. Again, really simple stuff, but if it's there, this invoice is due for payment on a certain date, people just put it in the pile and forget about it. But they've got a hard date there that's in front of them, telling them when it's due. And another one, put your bank details on there so that they where they've got to pay the money to when they come to pay it. Again, if you think somebody sat there with a pile of invoices to pay, they'll do the easy ones, and they've got a pile there of problem ones. I've got to make a phone call, I've got to find out their bank details, etc., etc. So make it easy for them. And also consider offering a range of payment methods. So it's all very convenient saying to me, the best thing for me is if they pay by bank transfer, but that might not suit the person who's paying you. So have the ability for them to pay by debit or credit card as well, or some other method. But offer those range of payment methods, and we'll look at one when I get to the technology shortly. Okay. Then after the sale, Record any payments that you receive promptly so that you know where you are with payments coming in. So you're not ringing people up and chasing them for payment when they say, "Oh, I paid you that last week," type thing, because that's awkward. It's not very professional, but it also it wastes time in you managing your debtor scenario and situation. So monitor that position at least weekly. So just don't let things drift. Be on top of it. Just as well as what's in the bank account, what debtors are owing you, when it's due for payment, and just keep on track of that. And again, we'll look at how technology helps that shortly. And then ultimately, if people are late in paying, you need to send reminders. So I would suggest 7 days late, it's a gentle nudge, and that will deal with the people who've forgotten or haven't paid. And then it just keeps going up in 7-day cycles in terms of a firmer tone. If you get to 28 days, then you should be really threatening that you're going to consult your lawyers or whatever, and make it very clear that they're considerably overdue for payment. Phone calls. Yes, you need to speak to people if they haven't paid. So after you've sent that 14-day reminder, it's a case of getting on the phone and talking to people. I think if you're anything like me, the last thing you want is somebody ringing you up and chasing you for payment. It's quite uncomfortable, but there are people in businesses that take those phone calls all day long. And what you want to do really by being persistent with them is to be a pain in the neck to them whilst also being polite, so that they just don't want to get your phone call next week type thing. So when they're shuffling, and I've seen it myself, the finance director will say to somebody who's running the purchase ledger, "We've got £20,000 this week. That's all you've got to spend." You have to shuffle it around and just manage the payment, so all you're spending is £20,000. So you want them to put your invoice on the top of the pile, so that they pay you, and then you don't get that call. The businesses that don't call people and make a pain of themselves, they're the ones that just sink to the bottom all the time, because there's no pressure on those. So you do have to make the phone call, and as I said at the outset here, getting their contact details, knowing who you've got to speak to up front when you're trading with somebody is really helpful for that purpose. Yeah, okay. So we'll get to the technology bit, and this is what I spend most of my time doing, in setting technology up for people, so that and businesses, so that they can make these processes easier and simpler for them. So I'll give you an insight into a couple here. So I use Xero, as many of you will know. It's the same with other cloud accounting software, but Xero is doing its invoicing for you. It's sending them direct to people by email. It's linking with your bank account so that you know exactly and straight away, as soon as somebody's paid, and that will reconcile with those payments and things like that. It's able to send customer statements out, so you can set it up automatically. So on the end of each month, the system automatically sends somebody a customer statement of anything, but it'll only send it to people if there's an overdue amount. So again, that deals without you having to do anything with those people that have maybe forgotten or just need a nudge and a reminder. It will send out the 7-day and 14-day letters. You can set those up as a template, and it fills in the customer's details and the value that's outstanding, and it will automatically do that in the early hours of the 7th day and the 14th day and things like that. So again, it's doing this work for you without you having to do anything, take any steps to it. You're not wasting time, taking time away from what you're really there to do. And I mentioned about monitoring your debtors at least weekly. You'll get an age debtor report that puts things in columns that says, no, these are 7 days overdue, these are 28 days overdue, these are 2 months overdue, whatever. So you can clearly see that and keep a real handle on it. There are also options for automated payments, and I do this with all of my clients. So I have all of my invoices paid by direct debit. So that can be set up, and direct debit doesn't need to be the same amount every month. I'll show you in a second how that works, but it fires off the invoice value, so that can be easily and conveniently set up. And my invoices, the nature of my customer base, I charge the same fee every month on a payment plan process. So I even have it set up to raise those invoices automatically. So once I've set the invoice up, it just runs every month, so I don't get involved with that. And then I'll also finish by showing you a little bit of artificial intelligence that sits on top of the software that extracts information and analysis to give you insight into what's in your system, as it were. So we'll just look briefly at the automation. So the way this works, I'll build this up step by step. So you've got a customer and they have a bank. You ask the customer, this is you in terms of your accounting system in Xero. So you ask your customer to complete a direct debit mandate. It's a simple online form. They've got to fill in their sort code and account number, and that's it. They don't have anything else. The form goes to them. It's got your logo on it, and very simple and straightforward. They fill that out. I make that one of my terms of sale. If a client came to me and refused to pay by direct debit, I'd just decline the business now. I just think that's just one of my terms of sale. It won't work for every business, I appreciate, but that's the way I do it. And then you raise a sales invoice whenever you're raising an invoice to your customer, and automatically Xero sends that sales invoice to go cardless. So there isn't an extra piece of work for you to do there. That it happens simultaneously and automatically. Go cardless then is liaising electronically with the bank, and it collects the payment on the due date by direct debit, and the money comes into your account 2 days later. So you send an invoice out and it's due on a certain date, and you know when you've sent it out that money is going to be paid to you 2 days later than the due date. If you just send an invoice out without this method, it's at the whim of the customers to when they pay you. Yes, some of them might pay you a little bit early, and this doesn't allow that to happen. But most will pay late, as the data shows. So it gives you certainty as to when you're going to get paid. So my invoices all go out on the 1st of the month, and the 15th of the month for me is a bit like payday when I used to be an employee and get all my payments come in on the one day, as it were. So yeah, that works really really well and seamlessly. And if you have repeat invoices with people, then you can set the system up to do it automatically, like I do. So it just happens in the background. And then finally, the artificial intelligence software, again, this just sits on top of Xero, and it's just pulling information out. So if you've got 10 customers, you probably don't need this because you can keep on track of that yourself. But if you've got 50 or 100 and you've got bills coming in from all angles, I can't keep on track of that sort of level of detail and analysis. So this is pulling stuff out in really useful sort of format. So what it's giving you here, just on this screen, is it tells you how much you've got in the bank at the moment. It tells you, what's it saying? It's predicting what cash you're going to have by the end of the month, because there's obviously other things in this company's books that they're going to have some bills to pay and things like that. But it's giving you here, these are your top debtors, and this is the money we're expecting this week. So it tells you straight away, you should expect a payment from Nicola Sutton of £3,175. And so you've got a very in-your-face reminder there that's coming. And if it doesn't come in the next few days, then you know about it. And then it's giving you other tips and advice and an insight into your data. So this is just constantly working in the background and analysing your system and giving you that information that you would otherwise have to pour through it yourself to find. So it's really helpful, and it goes on to project graphs, and you can see it even tells you whether you're actually going to run out of cash in the next 12 months as well, and things like that. So yeah, all very clever stuff. And but I think my sort of conclusion of this is, yes, there's these intelligent artificial intelligence and systems to do things, and they're really useful. But there's also some really basic admin to do in terms of setting up those sales processes and that sort of contractual relationship with your customer, and just giving some real key information that helps them make the payment on time for you. And it needs both to run together, really, the technology and those simple steps as well.